Hello, and welcome everybody. Give everyone a few more minutes to log on as people are rolling in. This is a new platform we're using today, and we're so excited to come to you. This is what I'm going to introduce. Okay, awesome. So welcome. We're so excited to have you all join us today. I have the honor of introducing Joseph Trujillo. Many of you know him. He's the fearless leader here at the Dream Chasers organization. And today he's going to be teaching on self-leadership and identity. For those of you who do not know Joseph, he comes from a background of government services as an elite executive who taught special agents in the U.S. for top elite training within mindset, within really accomplishing things that helped protect our country at the highest level. He gets to share that all with you today. And as that translates to your self leadership and identity and how to be a top sales producer, he also has a history over 2 billion sold within his own production and the team organization as a whole in 2023 and 2024. So without further ado, I'm so excited to bring to the stage Joseph Trujillo.
Hey, what's up, good family? My love, Trisha, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. No better way to come on into a conversation of training than have your loved one introduce you. So I'm really excited for you guys, for us to come together today and just have this phenomenal opportunity to have some conversation, right? So let me lay out what we can expect for today. This is actually the very first iconic success training that's going live and direct and open and available for all of you. Previously, I had performed this instruction, these periods of instruction during an academy class. We held our first academy class late last year in the city of Upland. And I'm telling you guys, the results were quite remarkable, right? We had agents that were just entry level, others that were refined, that had been in the industry for quite some time. And we started to see them progress, transact, and go through an evolution that has now, as I am tapping into them every single week on accountability, they're putting homes into escrow, they're creating relationships, and more importantly, they're elevating in their career and in their personal identity, right? So I love to see that transformation. And so today, what we're going to be doing for the next 45 to 50 minutes is I'm going to be speaking to you directly about identity first and then mastering everything else. Okay. Because in my 25 years of government service, I myself had many moments of identifying like who am I? Like, what am I doing in this space? What's my next step? What's my calling? What's my purpose? These were all questions that I had myself. And admittedly, many times that identity reshaped, right? That identity took a different form, right? And I didn't understand it at the time because sometimes we're just running through life and we're really not mastering ourselves. If you guys can agree with that, would love to see your guys' comments in the chat as we go throughout this course. If you have any questions, this is live and direct, so this is gonna be evergreen. It's on rolling on YouTube, Facebook Live right now. So would love to have your guys' engagement in the chat room. Okay, so let's talk about success really quick. Okay, because most people chase success essentially with the wrong roadmap. Would you guys agree? Absolutely, right? So sometimes we're trying to build a life and a business that looks very impressive, but we don't have a foundation that's very solid, right? It's a shaky foundation, but we're chasing the impressive elements. And that's because we skip the number one part. We skip the number one part of building a solid foundation, and that is self-leadership. Okay. In those 25 years of government service, from the Marine Corps to working with a bunch of three-letter agencies, I had this amazing, God blessed opportunity to be able to learn from some of the most elite law enforcement officers, military background, and it shaped a lot of who I was, even in my own identity. I remember a key time when I was in my late 20s, just getting out of the Marine Corps, and I started my first occupation in government service as a federal officer. I remember I was still living very worldly, and I was still out, hanging out, doing a lot of the wrong things. And I got myself actually in a little bit of trouble and with of all things, with the law, right? So I got a couple tickets, and those tickets turned into a warrant, and one thing led to another, and I actually put myself in jeopardy of losing my occupation. And it really was because I didn't have any self leadership. I didn't have any real strong identity. And I was letting life and the world like command the decisions of me as a man. Okay. Now, I was able to reshape that by being around other amazing individuals that were like, hey, Joe, you're better than that. Hey, Joe, let's have a conversation. Right. And many of us don't have those kind of rooms to be in at times, but in order to find, right? You have to be out there. Like if I had not been open to conversations with other leaders or other people that had been before me, I would have probably minimized my opportunity in order to learn and grow from what I was experiencing at that time. I'm very confident that many of you have a time or a reflection in your life where you had a pivotal moment like that. Okay. And when you step into that next moment, right? When you start commanding your decisions, especially when nobody's watching, it'll start to change and shape the identity, and you'll start to see yourself turn into a different person, essentially. Okay. Now, I've had a few of these moments in my life, and every single time that I step into that new identity, that new space of self leadership, not only do I learn and grow, but more importantly, I start to impact other people. Okay. And I know many of you that are watching this are in real estate or come from that industry, or you're in entrepreneurship. And when you're in entrepreneurship, many times we have this misconception that it's all about us, right? That we're doing this for ourselves. Okay. And it's the polar opposite, is what I've been able to identify in my 7 years in real estate, is that as I was able to reshape my identity on like, who am I best serving? Is it myself first? Is it my community? Or is it the people that I'm serving? When I shaped that identity, and was a more recent identification in myself. When I started serving others before me, I really started to see a lot of positive movement, not just in my business, but in my relationships with people, in my faith with God, and my evolution as a man. So, with that being said, team, today I'm going to share three really key elements. Okay, three things. I've taken a look at all the different things that I've learned in 25 years, the 7 years of success in real estate, and really identified three key measures that I'm going to share with you today. And I am certain if you apply these measures, that you will find yourself building a strong foundation. Okay. So this is called the Iconic Success Academy. It is a evolution of our master classes that we're having. Stay tuned to the end of this, and I'm going to share a lot more information about that and how you can stay in tune with it. Okay. Once again, today we'll be talking about building a strong foundation of leadership and identity, and it starts with you guys. Key number one that I want to share with you guys is that success is not a threat, it's a responsibility. Now, as you're looking at this screen, I want you guys to have your notes in front of you and work through this, right? Like we're in an actual class, right? It's very interactive. I want you guys to be taking diligent notes, because that's where you will have the breakthroughs. Okay. So, success, it's not a threat, it's a responsibility. Now, what does that mean? Okay. See, some of you have been very programmed, like I was, to believe that if I succeed, then I would make someone else feel like a failure. right? If I succeed, then I would make somebody else feel like a failure. I hear so many agents as I'm going through recruitment processes or adding people to teams that they really minimize their goals, right? They minimize their goals. For example, one of the key questions that I ask agents all the time, I'm like, what are your goals for the year, right? And it's so ironic that I always hear the same answer. It's always 12, right? A full-time agent, they want to do 12 transactions. They think that one a month is more than enough for them, okay? And the thought that comes into mind with me is, well, why not more? Why minimize that goal? And here's what I found is it because there's a lot of past limitations that many of us carry into real estate where we don't want to take more than what we're afforded to have, right? So I remember this analogy in the Marine Corps that we used to share is like we would all order a piece of pizza, you know? We'd order a piece of pizza. And what does everybody do when a pizza's at the table? How many slices do most people get? One, right? You get one slice because you don't want to be that greedy person. You don't want to get more than what you think that you should be taking at that moment, right? And it's just a mindset analogy that I'm sharing with you. Now, of course, you don't want to take 7 pieces of the 10 right off the top because then you become that guy and nobody wants to be that guy, right? But if you simply had the mindset of, well, what if I take 2, right? Because there's enough for everybody here. It starts to create a different light within yourselves. Because a lot of us, we begin to dim our light if it's not lighting other people's candle. And I actually really, really love that idea about lighting others people's candle before we light ourselves. But the key point in it is not dimming your own. Does that make sense? Not dimming your own. Okay. The second part of that is that success is not about being better than others, right? It's about becoming the best version of yourself so you can serve others at the highest level, right? Not at a level, but at the highest level. See, the unique thing about leading people, and again, in my experience of leading organizations and troops and law enforcement agencies of all sizes, is that I knew and I had to learn that if I wasn't able to lead myself, especially behind the scenes, people were not going to follow. People were not going to be open to being led by somebody that didn't have it all together. Does that make sense? Okay. But sometimes that's a self-reflection within ourselves that we don't identify right in the beginning. So for those of you that are in real estate or some other form of sales, give that some thought, right? As you're meeting with the people that you're serving, your clients, your buyers, your sellers, right? And you're having these conversations. Now, from their perspective, they're expecting you to lead them in this journey, to lead them in this path, to get them from A to Z, right? That's the expectation, even though it may be unspoken. But acknowledging that is very, very important. Having the conversation with them of expectations and how you're going to lead them, not only will it ease that opportunity of the sale, but the experience that those clients will have from your interaction with them will be 5-star reviewed, will be referral based, will be everything that you would love to have in your business if you're setting expectation and you're leading with transparency. Okay, leading with transparency. So in this next part of this conversation, in this first point, I want to have a reflection moment for you guys. Okay, I want you guys to write down 3 key beliefs or habits, right, that have been holding you back from achieving your full potential in real estate. Okay, 3 key beliefs or habits that have been holding you back from achieving your full potential in real estate. I'm going to give you guys about 1 minute to go ahead and jot down 3 elements here. Now, keep in mind, you're not sharing with everybody on this particular platform. So be honest, be vulnerable, be truthful with yourself when you write these 3. Go ahead and begin and write those 3 elements right now. Awesome. We just took about a minute there, 60 seconds. I'm glad you guys had an opportunity to identify those 3 habits or beliefs. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper. We're going to dive a little bit deeper. Let's step into number 2, guys. We're going to step into number 2. Control emotions. Don't let them control the narrative. Control emotions. Don't let them control the narrative. I was having this this conversation with my wife the other day because we're always just pinging off of each other ideas, concepts, and thoughts. And we were talking about it was actually this morning. We were talking about emotions, right? And so I know some of these topics can be a little interesting for some people because we've all had our own experiences. I am gonna just merely share with you what my experience has been with these elite performers in government service and in military, and what our perspective was on emotions. Now, it just disclaimer doesn't mean that it's entirely true. It's what I've learned, what I've perceived, and many times what I apply myself in order to continue to perform at the highest level. Is that fair with you guys? All right. I have your permission to get deep. Let's go. Yes, yes. I love it. All right. So emotions, here's the thought, guys, that emotions are fleeting. Okay? Emotions are fleeting. Okay? And they're not the same as feelings. Right? Feelings, from my perspective and what I learned, are a little bit different. Okay? So let's dive into that really quick. Many times what I had noticed when I was in government service, and I see it in real estate as well, is that us as human beings, we're feeling a certain, we're not feeling, we have an emotion, right? We're angry, we're hurt, we're mad, or we're happy, right? They can be happy, they can be positive emotions as well. Okay. Now, sometimes those emotions will turn in and we identify them as a feeling, right? I'm feeling sad today. I'm not feeling very well today. Like these kind of statements that we verbalize. Now, what I would challenge some of you to think about is that just an emotion at the moment that you're encountering that you can quickly change into a positive feeling? It absolutely is. Because emotions are very fleeting, right? They can be here now, and with the right application and mindset, you can change that emotion into a positive. Would you guys agree? You guys have probably had training or heard training from Tony Robbins and all these amazing leaders in the entrepreneur space. Many of them say the same thing with a slightly different twist. Okay. Now, I would have a lot of times, especially in my training environments, right, where I would have an agent and they would show up to work or training, and life happens to us and they're showing up and they're in a space, right? They're having an emotion. And as I pull them aside, right, as their team leader, as their, sergeant or whatever role I had at that particular moment, and I have a conversation with them and say, because admittedly, it's a little different in military and in government service than it is in real estate. But there I was able to have like really direct conversations, right? Like, what's going on with you today? Like, you need to shake that off. What's happening? Like, you have a mission to accomplish. You're here to perform that mission for the greater good. Like, let's talk through it, because you literally have 2 minutes to get over this before we throw you back into the fire. Okay. And in those quick couple minutes, the emotion would be expressed. We'd have a conversation about it, and then we would work through it. And then immediately after that, what I would notice is that transformation where that feeling, that perceived feeling would change into a positive feeling for them to move forward throughout the course of the day. So that's really powerful. So emotions are fleeting and feelings are not facts, guys. Feelings are not facts. Okay. They're not factual in the element for you to accomplish your mission. Okay. So that's one element that I've noticed about special agents, that they were able to implement that very, very quickly. Okay. Now, another element about emotions is that emotions are not your identity. Okay. You are allowed, you are authorized, you are given every opportunity to have a series of emotions, because that is what happens in life. Okay. Now, the one thing that God gives you as well is grace. Okay. God gives you the grace to be able to be in that moment, to be able to understand it, but He also wants you to grow out of it. And it holds true for entrepreneurship, right? That emotion is that moment. Okay. Now, the quicker you work out of that, the quicker you move into a stronger trajectory of your identity, because your emotion is not your identity. You guys agree? Your emotion is not your identity. Your identity is put together by a series of events that happens in your life and implementation of everything from faith to learning to family. That's what will create your true identity. Okay. So when you have these moments of feeling down, let's say these emotions, right? I would encourage you guys, understand it, take that moment, and even though you're feeling disappointment, do not set yourself into a failure state. Okay. And what I mean by failure state is, we had this in military and in training, is we would train to failure. Sounds weird, right? We would train to failure. Okay. Now I'll tell you why we did that, but let me give you a stronger example. Training to failure means you almost completely exhaust yourself, right? Not because it's good training, because when you're at failure, right? And write this down. When you're at failure and you're still performing optimally, right? You're still performing at the highest level. That means that you can operate in any state. It's easy to perform when you're feeling good, when you're healthy, when you're having great emotions, when you're in the right environment, right? When you're well fed. Like when all these things, when all those stars are perfectly lined up, it is easy to perform. That's what you should be doing. Now, where the challenges arise, right? Where the waves get a little heavy is when you're performing and all those things aren't lined up. Okay. Now, the top 1% performers, I don't care what industry it is, they're the ones that are crushing it in failure, at failure rate. When they're tired, when they're fatigued, when they're hurt, when all the odds are stacked against them, and they show up on the court and they perform and they win the championship. That's what the cut above does. Okay. But we can implement that now. We should be implementing that now. So my challenge to you guys is, where in your life, where in your business are you performing to failure, so that way you can get stronger in your application? Okay. For many agents, it's time, right? You perform to failure in time. Some of you, I hear, oh, I'm working 16 hours, 20 hours a day, whatever that is. You're working a lot of hours, but your productivity and activity isn't in alignment with it. So be cognizant about the time that you're putting in and the productivity of those times. Okay. And that's an entirely another conversation and training element, but it also it relates to your personal accountability. Okay. So before we move on to the third element here, let's tap into this exercise. Okay. I want you guys to set a quick accountability plan. Okay. A micro accountability plan for this week. I want you guys to write down two goals that you will achieve this week and how you'll hold yourself accountable, right? So for example, one of my goals was this week, I want to open an escrow. Okay. My accountability would look like I want to open an escrow, and I'm going to do that by doing escrow opening activities, such as I'm going to go show 10 homes to 5 different clients. I'm going to go door knock 100 doors to get one listing. It's very, very specific. Okay. So write down 2 goals and how you'll achieve them this week. Go ahead and take 60 seconds to go ahead and do that. All right, guys, we are back. We are back. All right. I hope you guys wrote down those 2 goals for the week, right? 2 goals for the week. And I'm really excited to have you guys track and monitor that progress. Also, I'm actually going to encourage you guys, because I know many of you that are on this call, many of you are going to have an opportunity to connect with me if this is your first time viewing it. And so if you need some slight accountability, I'm excited to get some personal messages from you guys, either on social media or reaching out. So then that way we can keep track of your momentum. Okay. Now, before we leave this subject matter, right? Before we leave this subject matter, I want to share something with you guys. Okay. Earlier on, we were talking about controlling your emotions, right? Not letting them control the narrative. The emotional part of what we do, like, for example, just in this simple exercise, if some of you should write down those goals and you don't achieve them at the end of the week, how's that going to make you feel? Maybe not so hot, right? Maybe a little disappointed that you set goals and you didn't achieve them. Do many of you feel like that in your business at times? You set goals and then you don't hit the mark, right? Now, when we do that, and we do it time after time, after time after time, you set goals, right? And then you're not achieving them, you start to shrink, right? You start to shrink in your belief. So the reason why that happens to us sometimes is because, again, we're letting our emotions control that narrative, okay? It puts us into survival mode, okay? It puts us in survival mode. Now, when you do survival mode, right? When you do survival mode in life, when you do survival mode in business, what do you make it about? Put it in the chat. What do you make it about when you're in survival mode? It's all about who? It's all about who? Yes, it's all about you. It's all about you. Okay? Now, imagine this perspective. Take you out of that equation, right? That survival mode mechanism shifts and you make it about service, right? You make it about something bigger than yourselves. Now, it is way different, guys. This is one of the most important things I want you guys to take away from this class today. When I'll give you guys the story, right? So when I had put myself as a special agent, as a team leader in dangerous operations, let's call them, right? Dangerous operations where my life was on the line, okay? Everything from suicide bombers, international deployment into like very chaotic situations, right? Extreme. One thing that I learned was this: I never made it about myself. I didn't care to a certain degree. I was trained to be hardened, not to think about whether or not Joseph survived. I was trained to think about how many lives can I save if something should occur. Does that make sense? My thought, my training, the hardening was about fighting for someone else. Okay? It wasn't about survival for Joseph. It was about building for something beyond my own survival. That selfless perspective, implementing that in business, I'm telling you guys, will change the trajectory of what you do. When you go out of survival mode, how can I get the next deal? How does that look for me on social media? How do I continue to build? I will quickly deplete and make you feel empty. And I see so many agents, so many entrepreneurs staying in that space, and eventually they end up leaving. Okay? Because they never serve the greater good. They never serve in the highest capacity to the people that they really truly love and what they're inspired by. So that is too, guys. Emotional control, so big, so tough. I encourage you guys, take a deep dive into it. This is actually a topic that we can do an entire class on. So if that's something that you're interested in, absolutely put it in the chat. Let me know if emotional training and hardening is something that you guys would be interested in. Thank you, TC. I appreciate you, my brother. All right, let's move on to item number 3. Takeaway number 3. Let's talk about building identity, right? How do we build it? So I've identified a couple of the elements that are kind of, let's call them weaknesses for many of us. Let's talk about how do we build that back up. Okay. And there's a framework here. I love frameworks because it shows you how you get there, right? What are a couple key steps that you can implement? Now, because it's not just about transactions, it's about transferring beliefs to our clients, we have to have the right framework within our own identity for us to move forward. Okay. And in this framework, it's an acronym, right? It's an acronym. It's called RISE. Okay. In the military, we used to call it rising to the top, right? How do you rise to the top? And it had nothing to do with like what I put on social media this morning. I'm like, it has nothing to do with your team, has nothing to do with your CRM, has nothing to do with your environment specifically. Those are all contributing factors that will enhance you. But if you don't have the right framework for your own identity, you will be operating on solo missions. Okay. Now, the first part of that framework is the letter R, which stands for realigning with purpose. Okay. Realigning yourself with purpose. Okay. Here's the perspective on it. Okay. When we have something that goes wrong, when something happens in life or in business, what do we do typically as human beings? Right? We put on these frames, right? And we start to kind of zoom in into that issue. We go in like hyper focus mode into what's happening. We call it zooming in, right? You're zooming into that problem, right? Because at that particular moment, it's the most important thing that's occurring to you. Okay. I had this happen day before yesterday, right? I had a listing that fell through. At that moment, when the seller said they no longer wanted to sell, that was like my key focus. I had a million things going on in business, but that was my thought, right? Now, what the training involves and what I would encourage you guys to do is as that zoom occurs and you're hyper focused in that problem, you got to zoom out fast. You have to zoom out fast. You have to take a step back and get your peripherals in place so you can see the big picture of everything that's occurring. Okay? Get clear on why it's happening to you at that particular moment. Okay? It's a realignment of the landscape. Okay? It's a realignment of the landscape. Like in the military, if we had a very specific target, many of you guys have probably seen this maybe on CNN or in a movie, right? When they're going to drop a bomb on a city or on a person or on a whatever target, let's call it, right? What do? They show you like that red light, right? That pinpoint where it's going to go. And then it zooms out and it'll show you the actual plane and like how it's 30,000 feet above sea level, 100 miles away. And it gives you like this really interesting perspective on like, wow, how could that plane from so far away, that B-2 bomber, hit that target with such accuracy? It wasn't because it's right over the target, zoomed in. It's because it has systems, a process, and perspective in place, right? Where it can be so pinpointed in accuracy that it gains that result. So in your business, as you're having these moments, right? Especially with yourself in your own identity, learn how to step away from the Zoom at times. Okay? Step away from that Zoom because you'll find yourself having better perspective when you're not so entailed on what's happening at that particular moment. Because if you stay there too long, you'll really, really start to diminish your own identity. Make sense? All right, let's rock. All right, the I, integrate identity. Okay, integrating identity. Now, this is such an important element that you can start to reshape and regrow every single day starting today. Okay, if you're not happy with the person you see in the mirror, your perception of yourself, whatever that looks like, or maybe simply you feel like, hey, I love myself, right? But there's just some key adjustments that I want to make to be a better parent, entrepreneur, friend. Then you can start to reshape that identity. And it starts with creating habits about who you want to become. Creating habits about who you want to become. Okay. Now, these habits, and this is what I've learned in these years, is that they start small, but they end big. Okay. They start small, but they end big. So many of you have probably heard, the conversation I've had, or maybe you guys have seen the YouTube about Admiral McRae in the Navy and his conversation about simply just making your bed, right? Simply just making your bed every single day, how that sets you up for the trajectory for success for the remainder of the day, because you started the day off with a big W, right? Start the day off with a big W. So I love that key one because that was the number one thing we would do in the military, right? In the Marine Corps, you wake up, you get out of the rack. The number one first thing before you do anything is you made your bed, and boom, you're winning, right? So awesome to be able to see that, and it's actually very difficult to implement. So I would challenge you guys, if you guys can start there, then you'll find a big win there. Now, next. What are the other habits? Now, I'm not going to give you a laundry list of what those habits should be, but I would encourage you to take a look at your routine and see where you can reshape your habits so that they better form the identity of who you want to become. Okay. If you want to be more educated, if you want to speak a little bit more eloquently, then maybe you should be reshaping your habits in a space where you're doing more reading, where you're taking on more podcasts or training or coaching. That's going to enable you guys to get to that destination and become the identity that you want to be. If you're a realtor, right, and you want to be a listing agent, then you need to put yourself in a space where you're learning how to implement those daily habits. Okay. Many of us have defaulted into what we hear the world speak as to like what habits should look like. I would encourage you guys, take your own deep dive into it, pray on it, right? Listen to counsel, see what people are doing in the spaces that you want to grow. So then that way you have a great example of what you want to mirror, right? When I was a special agent, a junior agent, and I knew that I wanted to be a team leader of a certain group or to be able to take on more responsibility in leadership, it wasn't something that I took on by myself. I had to align myself with somebody that had been there, somebody that had done that, somebody that had talked the talk. So then that way I had a good example of integrating that element into my own identity, because it's hard at times to do it all on your own. Okay. Hard to do it all on your own. But if you attach your daily habits to the person you want to become, you'll really start to see yourself reshape your identity. Now, the second point to that element is the confidence part. Okay. This one is tough because confidence just doesn't build overnight, right? Confidence doesn't build overnight. Very seldomly will you just be one way one day and the next day be a fully confident person implementing and executing at the highest level. It requires the habits that you build over time and keeping the integrity of your word to yourself for you to go next level with that and really reshape that identity. Make sense? All right. Thank you, guys. The next letter in the RISE method is S. S. And S stands for speak life. Okay? S stands for speak life. Be a good word to yourself, as I was mentioning with identity, right? Be a good word to yourself. You got to start there in self-leadership. When you start to make these commitments, right? And all of us do it. We put it in our calendars, we jot them down on notes, we put them on our phone, we have thoughts. All right, I'm going to do this, 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 and that. And then we don't execute. What are we doing? We're slowly corroding our integrity to ourselves. Okay? Because when you don't keep your own expectations, I promise you, it will make you feel like you can't keep those expectations to other people. And that's how that self-leadership really allows you to be a better leader and a better server of people in business, is that keeping the micro commitments to yourself daily, you will build a strong, powerful, confident being that is going to be able to go out there and serve the world. Okay. Because imagine a space where, one, you're making your bed, right? And then secondly, you're moving into the other important elements of your day, right? Not that making your bed should be number one, but if you started off there, boom, that micro commitment is completed. You're reading your Bible. You're deep into affirmations or worship or educational reading. You're preparing, your day with your meal preps. All of these small things matter. They matter because they give you those check marks, right? The mental check marks where you're just like, boom, boom, boom. And before you know it, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning hits, you're like, I've check marked so much today. I've already won so much. I'm owning my day. That you're moving forward into a space where when you start making those calls from 8 to 10, 8 to 11, you're setting up appointments, your confidence is on boom. And people feel that because emotion, the transfer of emotion is a real thing, and people will feel that. So I've actually attributed this very specific element to how I show up when I take appointments with my clients. Like I get the question oftentimes like, how do you get clients to submit offers or take the listing and move them into a space where you want to lead them to? It's because when I show up for them, even if I'm having the most crappiest day, I remove that before I step into that opportunity. I let go of those emotions, right? I create a new space for that person to encounter the best version of myself so that way I can lead them. Okay. So, what I would love for you guys to do is identify, right? Identify those moments where you're not maybe speaking life into the person that you want to become, right? My wife and I, we actually just shared that this weekend at an event is, for us, what's most important is we speak life through faith, right? We speak life into each other, into our children, into events. I mean, we spoke life into this meeting before it even happened, right? And so for us, that's a powerful way for us to reframe, no matter what's happening, on our desired outcome with God's plan and guidance. So, but it's speaking life. So start there, guys, right? If you guys can speak life into yourself, into your business, into what you want to become, your identity, your framework will start to reshape into the person that you want to become, develop, and eventually be a leader in your space for your family. Really, really powerful way for you guys to pull that all together. Okay. Awesome. And then last but not least, the last method in the RISE framework is executing with integrity. Okay. Two key words in there, right? Execute and integrity. Okay. Now, execution is a very unique word. Executing, in my definition of what I've experienced and what I go through, is like finalizing. It is putting the exclamation mark. It is completing the task. It is literally like mission accomplished, right? That's execution to me. It's and it always ends with a win. Like my execution mindset is that it's always the win. It's always the positive. I don't even think about a negative outcome unless it occurs. So the execution is so important for you guys to be able to understand that. Like, what does execution look like, and how do I get there? So in everything that you do, in every tasking, you should have an execution element aligned to it, right? So for example, you guys seen it in the first page. I asked you guys to do what? Identify your goals and tell us how you're getting there. That's the execution. How are you going to get there, right? The plan to get executed. So that's execute. And the second part is integrity. Okay. The second part is integrity. Keeping the small promises to yourself, right? The little wins will compound, will create confidence. And then you being able to know that you did everything right as you should have done. You didn't cut any corners. That your performance, if somebody was looking at it from afar or a third party, they would be like, wow, not only is there a phenomenal agent, but they operate with complete integrity, right? So I would share with you guys this, is that integrity part is also an opportunity, you guys, to get vulnerable in your spaces, right? So be okay with doing the hard things, by having the hard conversations, by telling your client, hey, look, I'm sorry, but the inspection didn't go as well as we had hoped, that we had thought. And based on that conversation, here's a tough talk, but these are the things that we really need to address, right? You're having a hard conversation with integrity. And I'm telling you, you'll work through more problems. You'll be more solution based when you have those conversations, because your client on the other side of the fence is going to say, you know what? I read the report, but thank you, Joe, for being able to be honest with me, tell me what's tough. They appreciate the integrity and having those conversations with them. So then that way they can operate forward with knowing all of the information, with knowing that you, in representation of them, that you fulfilled your promises, and that you're not just painting all roses and sunshines for them to be able to move into one of the most important elements of their financial decisions, and that's purchasing a home, for those of you that are realtors. So operating with integrity is such a really big deal. Okay. All right, guys, that's the RISE method. Realigning with purpose, right? Integrating integrity, speaking life into yourself and into your business, and then executing with integrity. Okay. I'm certain, guys, if you guys operate this framework, right? Operate this framework for anything that you're encountering in your business, it will transform you to going from transactions to hyper transactions, from agent to super agent, from mom to great mom, break these down and how they align for you in your life and in your purpose. Awesome. I keep forgetting that I'm not on Zoom. I was going to ask you guys if you had any questions, but if you do have any, go ahead and put it in the chat. Would love to address those as we go through. Those are the key points that I wanted to share before I move into the conclusion of today's amazing training and conversation. Okay. And what that is, and Pat, if you could put it in there, is that we're always in training, guys. We're always in training, right? The most successful people aren't the ones who knew the most, but the ones that chose the most. You get to choose every single day. You chose to be on this call today or to watch it as it lives on YouTube and other platforms. You made the choice to be able to tap in and to want to grow and, create discipline over ease for yourselves, right? To create identity over this worldly image, or to create your faith over your own fears. Okay. Now remember this. I spoke about one thing in each and every slide, and I hope you guys picked up on it. And it was about alignment. Alignment with yourselves, alignment with your people, alignment with yourself. Leadership. Because one thing's for sure, two things for certain. When you're in alignment for your assignment. Okay? And many of us don't know the why, don't know the purpose. We haven't figured that out. And it's okay. But when you're aligned at the core, in your faith, with your heart, with the right people in the right environments, right? Doing the things of integrity, your assignment will develop or it will become known to you. And that's ever evolving, right? My assignment, what I thought was my assignment in my 20s was different than what it was in my 30s, what it was in my 40s. Now I'm aging myself. My assignment here as a man giving this class to you is completely reshaped. And every single time, guess what? It got better. Because I listened to wise counsel. I listened to the people around me. I was willing to grow, adapt, and implement. Okay. So as we conclude this call for today, I hope, my prayer is that you guys continue to implement these kind of processes and just stay in growth mode, guys. Just stay learning. Get in the rooms, learn. Instead of being, the couch potato or inactive in your business or in your life, get on these calls. I don't care if they're mine or somebody else's, because you'll continue to find yourself in a place of growth. Now, speaking of growth, if you guys want to continue to learn, grow, and build, if there was something in here that you're going to implement, something that touched you or something that that you can share with another human being, I would absolutely love for you guys to, we just put a link in the banner. We have a link that's attached in the chat. I would love for you guys to register for these continued sessions, these continued master classes, right? Where we're going to go deep into different identity. My wife and I have put together a masterful calendar where we're going to have conversations that are based on iconic success, conversations with some of the best entrepreneurs in the space through her relationships with our media outlet, LA Style Magazine, high performing habits conversations. I mean, really just getting into the nitty gritty of marketplace leadership and how we're going to impact not just ourselves, right? But our business and other people. So if getting into the next level meets the next version, the best version of you, I would absolutely love for you guys, take that link, sign up so you guys can get all of the information for our upcoming classes, our upcoming calendar. We have some amazing things, amazing speakers in store for you guys. But with that being said, we're here at the top of the hour. I absolutely want to give thanks to each and every one of you for being here today. And if this impacted you, share the link. You guys are going to get an email from this. We'll love to have an entire community here tapping in every single Tuesday at 10 o'clock. But till then, you guys stay faithful, stay blessed out there, stay true, And we'll see you guys next week at 10 a.m. Have an amazing day.